So, speciation. Right? Often when we think about evolution, we tend to think about the creation of new species. Right? We think, oh, well, humans evolved from apes. Right? Um, Creating new things is what we usually think of when we think of evolution. But the reality is that speciation, well, very, very, very intimately intertwined with the process of evolution, is an entirely different process. Right? So speciation is not the same as evolution. They work side by side, but they're two distinct processes. So the mechanisms of evolution actually never lead to speciation specifically. Right? So evolution does not create new species. Right? Speciation creates a new species. Okay? And that's what speciation is, the creation of a new species. Okay? And in order to really think about how speciation works, we first must contemplate what it means to be a species. Right? If you were to look at me and I were to look at you, I assume that we would be on the same page, that we are the same species, right? We are each Homo sapiens, humans, right? Maybe. But if we look at a cat, we are usually comfortable in saying that that cat is a different species from us, right? Is a cat and a dog a different species? Yes, right? Is a lion and a cat a different species? Like house cat? Well, yeah, they are. They're different species. Are wolves and dogs different species? No, usually they're not. But why? Why is a house cat and a lion a different species, but a house dog and a wolf typically the same species? Right? So the question is, how do we definitively define species? Right? How do I know that I'm the same species as you and not the same species as the cat? And now the reality is the definition of species actually is a little convoluted because we need to use different parameters based on the type of life that we are looking at. But the cleanest definition and the definition that works the best for most organisms is the biological concept of speciation or species, which is to say that two organisms that can mate and create an offspring that is reproductively viable, that is to say the offspring can also make babies, are the same species. Inversely, if you mate with an organism and you cannot create a viable offspring, you are different species. Right? And so if a house cat mates with a lion, they can't make a baby. Okay? If a dog mates with a wolf, typically they can make a baby. Okay? If a lion mates with a tiger, it can make a baby, and we call it a liger. But the liger cannot make babies of its own, so lions and tigers are separate species. The liger is what we call a hybrid. Right? It's a baby made by two different species. Okay? So now we have our heads wrapped around what a species is. We have to ask ourselves, how do we make new species? How does speciation occur? Okay. And that's easiest to ask is, what stops a house cat from having babies with a lion? Why, when they mate, does no baby come out? Right? The answer to that is that they have different chromosomes. Their chromosome sets are too dissimilar to line up during fertilization and make a zygote, right? A lion and a tiger's chromosome sets are similar enough that when they mate and the sperm gets to the egg, right, those chromosomes can line up enough that they can make a baby. Okay? They line up poorly enough that when that baby goes to do meiosis, its gametes are funky and don't work. Right? And so when you have two populations that are separate from one another, they begin to accumulate changes in their DNA. Okay? And over enough time, those changes are significant enough that if those two populations meet back up and they mate, their chromosomes don't align anymore, and so they can't make babies. Right? The sperm can still reach the egg, right? All that stuff can still happen, but the chromosomes, the genes that make that baby its baby self, don't work. So, no baby. Okay? So that's the basis of how speciation occurs. You have two populations that were at one time the same species. They did a bunch of mutations because they weren't allowed to see each other, and when they do see each other again, the DNA is too different, and they don't make babies. Bye.